Right, let's talk Boris Johnson, shall we? He made a surprise visit to Kiev this weekend and met President Zelensky. After the visit, Zelensky praised Boris Johnson and said that the leadership shown by the UK would, I quote, go down in history. For his part, Boris Johnson has pledged more weapons to help Ukraine. Where do we go with this? The Ukrainian Defence Ministry has tweeted the following. We welcome Boris Johnson in Kiev, the first G7 leader to arrive in Ukraine since the beginning of the large-scale war. We're strengthening our union of democracies. Be brave like Boris and be brave like Ukraine. Jen, obviously, Ursula von der Leyen was there just before Boris, so this is not the first kind of European leader to visit Kiev, but many were very proud, I guess, to see Boris Johnson wandering around Ukraine. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I must say I didn't notice Ursula von der Leyen's visit at all. But I did notice Boris Johnson's visit, and obviously everybody else did too. I think this was a good news story. I think this was a very positive thing. I mean, obviously it was very symbolic. I mean, many of his detractors said this, this is just a PR operation and so on. Well, yeah, to some degree it is, but that is the point of it. It was Boris Johnson representing the UK and the UK government saying we stand with Ukraine, and I've come here, to make that commitment very clear. So I think that was positive. But obviously, for some people, the UK Prime Minister can do no right at all, whatever he does. But, we did hear it from the horse's mouth from President Zelensky himself, that they saw this as a very positive move. And they also considered that the UK's role in this crisis has been a very important one. And the UK has been quite decisive. It's been more committed than many other European countries. It obviously aligned itself with the US before the invasion occurred, and also was training the Ukrainian military for some time before that, and has supplied weapons and provided aid and so on. I think it shows actually the benefits of having an independent foreign policy, that you can be much more agile, that you can be more decisive, that you can, take the decisions. And I think he recognised probably at a very early stage that the principle for which the Ukrainians are fighting for sovereignty and self-determination was an absolutely critical one. And that's why we should stand with Ukraine. And obviously those are principles that have been much denigrated in recent years, not least in this country. But in this fight, we see just how important sovereignty really is.
Dominique?
Yeah, I think objectively speaking, Boris Johnson has really been quite the leader in regards to Ukraine. What I find interesting, though, is that, the country, I think, that's mostly responsible for this conflict, the United States, really hasn't played that much of a pivotal role in this conflict. Personally, for me, I think that Joe Biden, throughout this whole thing, even, the years leading up to this invasion, I think that America has loaded the gun, and now Joe Biden is loading the gun and letting other powers fire it.
Why do you think America's responsible for this?
Because in regards to NATO expansion, America is the principal feature of this. The reason why Russia has said it is invading Ukraine is because, number one, it wants NATO to make clear that Ukraine isn't going to join. And America, at various points, has kept that door open rather on purpose, I think. And Joe Biden in the 1990s, even verbatim out of his own mouth, said that the one reason why conflict and war would begin again in Europe is if NATO continued its expansion in Eastern Europe. And the President of the United States said that. So I think he should be playing far more of a pivotal role than he is right now.
Mark?
Well done to Boris Johnson, because the British government was quick to react. They muddled a bit the sanction because they didn't want to make the other rich people from the Middle East or from Asia afraid about their money. So that was not as well done, but in terms of the armaments, It was very quick. It was very agile. Brexit helps, of course, because the UK doesn't have to wait 27 opinions. But I think for me, the real problem of Ukraine is Germany, because unless Germany, after the disastrous, we know it now, policy of Merkel on energy and completely aligning itself with Russia, will have to take the hard decision, which is to diminish the imports of gas
from Russia. So let me ask you on this, because this comes up all the time. What do you think the impact would be on Germany of basically just cutting off that dependency on Russian
poor German people
energy?
You know, if you see how Germany imposed on Greece and all during the Euro crisis, a terrible policy of diminishing expense and all that sort of thing. They can suffer a bit by helping Ukraine.
I'm asking you, what do you think? Because, I mean, I think they get like 40% of their energy. For a country, basically, to suddenly cease getting 40% of its energy supply, I'm asking you, what do you think the impact on the citizens will be?
They can do it progressively. They don't have right away to stop 40%.
I mean, that's what they're saying they're more willing to do. They're more willing to progressively...
But they haven't done anything. They haven't done armaments. They haven't done sanctions, really, and they haven't done diminishing... and, you know, in Europe, it's Germany that matters.
But at the same time, why did the USA approve Nord Stream 2, which would stand to benefit Germany and Russia? Why did Joe Biden, much, you know, to the odds of members of his own party and also the Republican Party, Joe Biden approved Nord Stream 2, knowing that it would basically be handing power to Russia, and then America itself has basically cut off its ability to produce its own energy independently.
Everyone accepts.
And he's loaded the gun and then just been like, oh, right, it's Germany's problem, it's Europe's problem. Why aren't more people calling out Joe Biden? That's my contention.
I mean, I think on this, I think you do make an important point. I mean, the first point I would make is that Russia and Russia alone is responsible for this war. Russia made the decision to invade. Now, I'm very familiar with the kind of long list of complaints from Russia about the West and NATO and the US not taking its security concerns seriously, which is absolutely true. I've followed it in great detail over many years. But even you can't take away the agency from Russia and Vladimir Putin, even if you feel that your back's against the wall. This is an indefensible war. It's an abomination. And I think it is pretty clear who is on the right side here. Now, having said that, we do have to ask the question how we got here. And I think, you know, when historians look back at this, they will have to conclude that this is a massive failure of diplomacy over a very long period of time. And things could have been done in a different way. And you have to ask the question, you know, was this a deliberate, you know, policy to push Russia to actually encourage Ukraine in its aspirations to join NATO and then actually to leave it to fight pretty much alone, regardless of what the West is now doing. So, you know, things are never as black and white.
NATO never said they want Ukraine in. It was especially with the Germans.
They did say that the door would be open, and
the door will be open.
Yeah,
but when like with the EU.
Yeah, but when Joe Biden met Putin last year in 2021. He also refused to make clear that Ukraine wouldn't be joining NATO. Why? I don't get it.
Ian's just written in and said, well, hang on a second. NATO has expanded because countries want to join, and in a democracy, that's up to them. If they want to join and the organisation wants to have them, what's it got to do with anyone else?
Yeah, but we don't want... No country wants to fight Russia, isn't it? And as we sympathise with Ukraine and the horror about what's going, no one has said we will fight the Russians.
It's time to look at reality
if Ukraine is part of NATO, NATO has to fight for Ukraine if the Russian attack. So.
But Mark, you say that nobody's saying we want to fight Russia. Of course nobody's saying that, and no sane-minded individual would even think that. But where I worry a little bit is Alex, for example, has emailed in saying, yes, we're leading the way and all the rest of it, and yes, people can say it's good, but his concern is, are we opening ourselves up essentially to the wrath of Putin? Many people might have seen that video where a UK missile has apparently shot down a Russian drone, and the video is kind of them saying, thank you, Britain, kind of thing. Yes. And I think there's some people out there that are worried, and you know, are we tiptoeing our way into potential World War III? I think that's the worry of many people.